I want you to think back to March 2022. Russia invades Ukraine. The headlines are everywhere. XRP is in free fall, and thousands of people, good people, smart people, panic sell at 38, convinced the bottom is falling out of everything they believed in. 18 months later, XRP is sitting above $1. The people who sold are watching from the sidelines, doing the math on what they left on the table. The people who held, or better yet bought more into the fear, quietly made returns that changed their financial picture entirely. That exact same moment is unfolding right now. Different conflict, same panic, same choice sitting in front of you. And I'll be honest with you, every other channel right now is posting emergency videos, flashing red alerts telling you the world is ending. I understand why. Fear gets clicks, panic gets views. But that's not what this channel is. I started The Calm Analyst because I believe the moments that feel the most urgent are almost never the moments that actually require urgency. What they require is clarity. And that's exactly what we're going to build together in this video. A clear, calm, rational picture of what's actually happening with XRP right now. What history tells us comes next, and what the one move is that 12 months from now you'll be genuinely glad you made. So, take a breath, turn off the noise, and let's get into it. The Middle East is heating up again. Trump has issued a direct ultimatum to Iran. Iran has responded not with diplomacy but with a threat to close the Strait of Hormuz and shift their entire military posture from defensive to offensive. Markets have already reacted, and your social media feed is probably full of people either screaming that crypto is dead or telling you to buy everything immediately. So let's slow down, because here at The Calm Analyst, we don't make decisions based on 15-minute candles and breaking news alerts. We look at the full picture. We look at what history actually tells us, and we figure out calmly, rationally, what this moment actually means for XRP and for anyone holding digital assets right now. That's exactly what we're going to do today. We'll cover what's happening geopolitically, how XRP and the broader market have historically responded to moments like this, what institutional money is doing right now while everyone else panics, and what your actual next move should look like. Stay with me. This is the video you need right now. Let's establish the facts clearly because the noise online is making this more confusing than it needs to be. President Trump issued a direct statement threatening to strike Iranian power infrastructure, including their largest facilities, if the Strait of Hormuz was not fully reopened within 48 hours. That's not a subtle diplomatic signal. That's one of the strongest public ultimatums we've seen in recent memory. Iran's response came quickly, and it was not a step back. Iranian officials announced they would fully close the strait, target vital regional infrastructure, energy, water desalination, and IT systems. And their senior military leadership declared that their strategic posture has officially shifted from defensive to offensive. Now, why does the Strait of Hormuz matter so much? Because roughly 20% of the world's oil passes through it. Closing it doesn't just affect energy prices. It sends a shockwave through global supply chains, currency markets, and investor confidence simultaneously. Markets hate uncertainty more than almost anything else, and this situation is producing maximum uncertainty. Within 15 minutes of Trump's initial statement, we saw 3 consecutive red candles across Bitcoin and XRP. Fast, sharp, and emotionally driven. And that reaction tells us something important. Not about the long-term value of these assets, but about how markets behave when fear enters the room. The question isn't whether XRP dropped, it did. The question is what comes next. And for that, we need to look at the pattern, not the panic. Here's what nobody is telling you right now, because it requires taking a step back instead of reacting to the moment. Every single major geopolitical escalation over the past several years, the Ukraine conflict, the Israel-Gaza situation, and multiple rounds of U.S.-Iran tensions has followed the same script when it comes to crypto markets. Step 1. Major escalation announcement. Step 2. Sharp and fast sell-off in digital assets. Step 3. Markets stabilize within days. Step 4. Recovery back to previous levels, often followed by continuation of the broader trend. We can look at this on the XRP chart specifically. During one of the most recent escalation cycles, XRP was trading around $145 at its local peak. The conflict escalated. We saw a meaningful sell-off, and then within days, XRP was right back at $145. That move happened not because geopolitics resolved. They hadn't, but because the initial panic passed and rational capital returned. Now, does that mean we're done going down in this current cycle? Not necessarily. We may test lower support levels, potentially around the 130 range or even slightly below. That's a real possibility worth acknowledging. But the direction that matters, the one that determines whether you look back on this moment as a mistake or an opportunity, is not the next 72 hours. It's the next 18 months. And here is the critical thing I want you to hold on to. The institutions who move markets don't panic. They wait. They accumulate on these sell-offs. Then retail investors FOMO back in at higher prices. That cycle repeats constantly. And recognizing it is one of the most valuable things you can do as an investor in this space. And this is exactly the kind of pattern recognition that I built this channel around. Because in a space full of people screaming at you to buy or sell based on whatever happened in the last hour, what you actually need is someone who's going to zoom out, look at the data, and give you a framework you can actually use. If that's the kind of analysis you've been looking for, right now is a great moment to subscribe to the Calm Analyst. Hit that button, turn on notifications, and make sure you're here for every breakdown, because what I'm about to show you about what institutional money is doing right now is the part of this story that almost nobody is talking about. Let's keep going. While retail investors are panic selling and doom scrolling, the institutional side of this market is telling a very different story. And I think this contrast is one of the most important things to understand right now. We're seeing the leadership behind one of the first leveraged XRP ETFs, ticker XXRP, go on record on major financial networks saying that XRP is going to be a key component of the new financial system, not a speculative asset they're watching from a distance, a foundational piece of infrastructure they've built a product around and are actively promoting to traditional finance investors. What's significant about that isn't just the bullishness, it's the source. This isn't a crypto Twitter influencer or a retail enthusiast. This is a fund executive speaking on financial television, making the case that XRP represents a generational opportunity because of what Ripple is building in terms of the actual infrastructure of global finance. He made a comparison I want to highlight specifically. He said the blockchain and crypto space right now is analogous to the internet in the 1990s. And his point was that the real wealth won't necessarily come from picking the right individual coin. It will come from understanding the wave itself, the technological transformation of how value moves around the world. And here's why that matters in the context of today's geopolitical news. Crises, as painful as they are, tend to accelerate the adoption of better systems. When traditional financial infrastructure gets stressed by global conflict, the argument for more resilient, borderless, decentralized financial rails becomes stronger, not weaker. The volatility you're watching right now in XRP's price is not evidence that the long-term thesis is broken. In some ways, it's the opposite. It's evidence that we're still early. Let's talk about what the actual playbook looks like here, because I want this video to be useful, not just informative. When Trump makes a major geopolitical announcement, whether it's a conflict escalation or a trade war move, the market typically goes through 3 phases. Phase 1 is the immediate dump, which we've already seen. Phase 2 is the volatility window, which for this situation is likely to be centered around the first few trading days of the week. Expect noise, expect red candles, expect fear. That is normal, and that is temporary. Phase 3 is the rebound. It's happened every single time in recent history after events like this. It doesn't happen on a predictable schedule, and it doesn't always go straight back up, But the direction of travel for assets with genuine utility and institutional backing has consistently been upward after the initial shock absorbed. So what should you practically be doing right now? First, do not make decisions based on fear. If your investment thesis for XRP was sound before this news, the news hasn't changed the thesis. It's changed the short-term price. Those are two very different things. Second, if you have cash on the sidelines and you've been waiting for a better entry point, moments like this have historically been exactly that. Not because conflict is good, but because fear creates discounts on assets that will recover. Third, define your time horizon. If you're a short-term trader, yes, the next few days require caution. If you're a long-term investor, the short-term chart right now is noise. The institutions buying these dips aren't planning to flip their positions next week. They're positioning for what happens when XRP is embedded in the actual infrastructure of global finance. And that story has not changed because of what's happening in the Strait of Hormuz. Let me zoom all the way out for a moment because I think it's important to end this video with perspective. We are living through a period of extraordinary geopolitical and economic disruption. That's not me being dramatic. It's just accurate. The global financial system is under stress from multiple directions simultaneously: conflict, trade wars, currency instability, and a technological transition in how value is transferred around the world. In the middle of all of that, XRP is positioned as a bridge currency, a neutral liquidity asset that doesn't belong to any one country, isn't subject to any single government's monetary policy, and is designed to move value across borders faster and cheaper than anything that exists in the legacy system. That positioning becomes more relevant in a world of geopolitical fragmentation, not less. When nations are in conflict, when traditional correspondent banking relationships get strained, when sanctions and restrictions create friction in the global flow of capital, the need for a neutral, programmable, borderless settlement layer becomes more obvious, not less. I'm not saying this to hype XRP. I'm saying it because the geopolitical environment we're watching unfold right now is in a very real sense the argument for why XRP was built. And watching the price dip in the short term because of that same environment is honestly one of the more ironic things about this moment. The long-term case isn't weakened by what's happening right now. For those who can hold the perspective, it's clarified. If you've been watching this channel for a while, you know that this is what we do here. We take the most stressful, most confusing moments in this market, and we break them down until they make sense. No panic, no hype, just the actual analysis laid out in a way that helps you think clearly when everything around you is loud. If this video gave you even one thing to think about differently, subscribing to The Calm Analyst is the best way to make sure you don't miss what's next. There is a lot more happening in this space, and the videos we have coming up are going to be ones you'll want to see. Subscribe, turn on notifications, and I'll see you in the next one. That's everything for today. Thank you sincerely for watching. If you found this useful, drop a comment below. I genuinely read every single one and they help shape the content I make next. Stay calm, stay rational, and I'll see you in the next